Welcome to another edition of the Dental Today podcast. Thank you for stopping by. This is brought to you by labmediatv. My name is Hezekiah Morales, and here we go. Remember to follow us on social media at labmediatv. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to another edition of the Dental Today podcast. We are very excited to have on the show a gentleman out of England, but here in the States, phenomenal impact, not only in the dental field, but he is going to share on this a little more. We're excited to hear him. Mr. Gary Archer. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Hezekiah. Lovely to be here. Finally, we got a chance to connect and have a chat.
Absolutely. I'm very, very excited to hear your story, to hear the exciting things that you are doing. I follow you on Instagram. The things that I see on your account are amazing. And how did how did you begin in dental?
Well, it's a very, very odd story, and it's something that you end up... no dental technician ever, just see if I can make this run a little bit smoother here for your viewers, because it's a little bit broken up, so hopefully it'll help a bit. At any rate, it started off with a phone call that no dental technician ever gets. And the phone call was, can you make a set of teeth that will fall out of somebody's mouth? And you know, when someone actually asks you to do that, because everything we're taught is about making dentures that stay in people's mouths. So when somebody actually asked me if I could make a set of teeth that would fall out, it was a little bit of a head scratcher. And I was working with my father at the time. This is going back some 30 odd years. My father was with me. I actually apprenticed under my father. And the phone call turned out to be from one of our dental clients who had a very renowned makeup artist in the dental chair and was doing some dental work on him. And the makeup artist had asked the dentist, could he make a set of teeth? And he said, well, I don't make teeth. He says, let me put you in touch with my lab guys. And that makeup artist turned out to be the legendary Greg Canham. And the talent turned out to be Robin Williams for Mrs. Doubtfire. And that was the first set of film prosthetic prop teeth that we'd actually made for Robin, the piece that you actually probably remember seeing in the film, that when he drinks, they're the ones in the drawer that they put in on him, and they're also the set that end up falling out of the glass or out of his mouth into the glass of wine or water, whatever he was drinking at the time. And that was the very first set of film prop teeth that we made. Greg was thrilled with them. The production companies were thrilled with them, and it basically led me down a complete rabbit hole, a completely new line of work from just being a regular dental lab technician. And that was 24 years ago, 25 years ago. I don't even remember when Mrs. Doubtfire came out. I think maybe 93. So 28 years now. So that's basically where it started. And from then they told somebody else, and someone else called me up and said, can you make teeth for something else and something else and someone else and someone else? And then we ended up doing Austin Powers. We started with Mike Myers, who wanted a set of prototypical British teeth. He came to see us. We made sculpts. We did designs, and the first ones out of the box were the ones that he went with, and he really liked them. That made him, famous. He made them famous, I should say. And it kind of spiraled. It spiraled completely out of control. We did teeth for Interview with a Vampire. We did them for Blade. We did them for Spider-Man. We've done, I can't even tell you, hundreds and hundreds of sets of different film teeth. And if you can actually see over my shoulder, all the shelves up there, they're actually filled with little boxes. And in those boxes are all the talents' molds of their teeth and copies of some of the stuff that we did for them. over the years.
That is
I must
amazing.
have 400, 500, 600 sets of boxes here with people's teeth in them.
Wow, that is amazing. How your work has transcended the laboratory and has impacted the big screen. Now, how did you get started in dental? You did share that you apprenticed under your father, but how did this start? Was
Right.
your father was it something that your father got into? Did you get into it after your father? How did this all come about?
Well, I was 18 when I left school, and like most 18-year-olds, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I'm 55 now, and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. But that's I ended up just going into the family business for lack of anything else that I was going to do. Started off as we all do, doing deliveries, helping out, and running around the lab. Then, unfortunately, my father he suffered a heart attack and was unable to work for about 6 months. So I basically stayed on, kind of minded the shop, made sure work got done, made sure everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing. And at the time, he had 4 or 5 people working for him. And so when he finally came back about 6 months later, he said, look, why don't you just stay in with it, and I'll teach you the business. And that's, at 19 years old, I started learning, making bite blocks, doing custom trays, and even going back actually a little bit further than that, even when I was a kid back in London, because my dad had a big lab in London. When I remember going to his lab in London as a kid and, grubbing around on the floor, finding old teeth and lumps of wax and playing with plaster. And it just seemed like a great, it seemed like a big lot of fun at the time. But then when you're 6 or 7 years old and you get to make a mess and someone else cleans it up for you, it really was, that was a whole different world. But at 19, I started in the lab, just learning, doing, practicing, doing pretty much everything, watching my dad. My dad was he was actually a denturist by trade. He'd taken his fields in the UK, and he was never a practicing dentist here in denturist here in California, because California doesn't recognize denturism. But he made plenty of dentures, a lot of our doctors, and some of which I'm still working for. Some 40 odd years later, I still work for a lot of the same guys. A lot of the doctors basically ended up, they used to ask my father all the time to come in and help treatment plan cases, help with difficult cases, and it was, just a lot of dentures back in the day. So that was basically how I learned how to do it. Learning how to do impressions, learning how to make dentures, learning how to take bites. And I used to stand there, when my dad used to do it, and I learned the business the same way. So fast forward, what is it, 35, 38, 37 years later, here I am. My dad is still alive. He's long retired, and he's enjoying retirement every day. He still pops into the lab every now and again just to make sure that I'm running it properly, and he's still very happy to spend a day here and come in and let me know if he sees that I'm doing something wrong, which I love. It's really great when he comes in.
Wow, that is truly a wonderful story. And so you apprentice under your father. Unfortunately, because of life events, you are, let's call it, put into the situation where you have to take a management role in a laboratory where you knew very little of. Then you immediately begin after that to dive in and just be completely immersed in that world. And then a few years later, you are working for the big screen. Am I getting that? Right?
You're absolutely right. It was, again, just because in being in the right place at the right time, a phone call changes your life. And if it hadn't been for the fact that phone call, I would never have been doing what I do today. I would never have the clientele.
Wow.
I wouldn't have, over 400 films and television shows to my credit. It's led me into a completely, it led me down, like I said, a rabbit hole. However, I still maintain the lab. I still do denture work. I don't do as much as I used to back in the day. A lot of the clients that we worked for over the years have retired, obviously. But I still have a good clientele, a good client base, and I will never really, I'll never give up doing dentures and partials because I love doing dentures. I mean, that to me it's therapeutic. Just sitting here doing setups, I can just do setups all day long. For me, it's just therapeutic, and half the time I don't even think about it. I just sit there and just do them and just crank them out. And no, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy helping my docs. I enjoy helping people. Treatment planning and working chairside, doing implant stuff, doing all on fours, doing the denture conversions and things like that. So it's a great mix, both film and television plus regular dentistry. It never gets boring and it never gets old.
Wow. And so a question that I usually like to put forth whenever we're talking about dental technician professionals that have various facets to who they are. And obviously you're doing the dentures and your chair side, very involved with the patient. But on this side, you're also very involved in films and going out and showing your work. I believe you were in a trade show when we were messaging on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken. So the question here is, how do you manage these two worlds that are highly demanding and continue to render high levels of professionalism?
Well, it's been a very, very lucky. I shouldn't maybe say lucky. I've been very privileged. I have very, very understanding clients. I've got very understanding people that I work for in the studio business. A lot of times my doctors that I work for, my clinicians, they know full well what I do. I don't get pressed for time. I don't take on new clients unless I have an understanding with them that sometimes I need extra time on cases. If I say I need a couple of days extra, there's a reason for it. I don't delay cases just to delay them. A lot of times cases get done earlier because it all comes down to planning and scheduling. A lot of times I know my limitations. I know what I can do. I have good people that work for me as well. I use occasionally, if I get overloaded, I've got some really good subcontract laborers that I use. They do some excellent work for me. So it's just a matter of time management. When I know that I'm working on deadlines for film and television work, then I call in some of my associates and other technicians who help me out, and they are incredibly good at what they do. They've got my full trust. I can trust them completely to do a case. They can fabricate it. Then all I need to do is just give it a look over for a QC before it goes out, and I know that they've done exactly what I need them to do. So it's time management and knowing what I can do with my time and knowing how and trust as well, trusting in my subcontractors and trusting in my other technicians.
Which is not a simple concept to either to grasp or to explain. So let's just go into doctors. How do you build, for the technicians that are listening today, how do you build that, let's call it that communication, that trust? What are some of the things that have helped you to build that communication and that relationship with your doctors?
I think the most important thing for me is knowledge, both chairside and laboratory. knowing what it takes, the ability to be able to go in and chairside to help them get an accurate bite, to help them get an accurate impression, to give them tips and techniques that have been handed down from, from years and years of experience from my father, old school techniques, materials that are never really talked about anymore in dental school. One of my favorites is a technique I just showed to a new client, basically doing upper and lower dentures, wants to make the patient a brand new set of dentures. The patient has a set of dentures that they're comfortable with. So rather than doing the old impressions, custom trays, bite blocks, I showed them if we do it with the old-fashioned ZOE, zinc oxide eugenol paste, inside the dentures that are border molded, have the impressions done in the mouth at the same time. The dentures are taken out, the dentures are mounted, the dentures are cleaned out and sent back to the patient. And then you now have upper and lower jaw relationships that are going to be working by accommodation, as opposed to any things that you mentioned that's going to make their lives easier, that's going to save them chair time, that's going to make a happy patient, that's going to increase their productivity. Communications, most important thing for lab technicians to know, lab owners to know. Always, always, always be able to communicate with your dentists. Be able to communicate on a level that they understand, that you understand. Be upfront, be honest with them. Have realistic turnaround times, and for the most important thing, have a good pricing structure. Don't give your work away for nothing. Unfortunately, there are too many, way too many lab technicians out there that give their work away. And I'm talking high quality work. I see beautiful work, and then I see the prices that they're charging for it. And I think to myself, you're absolutely mad, because your work stands so high. Why are you giving it away for nothing? And
why do you think that is?
It's the nature of the business. Because what ends up happening, we end up with a lot of cut pricing in the business. You get a lot of technicians that come in, and the first thing they'll try and do is to cut the prices so that they can attract new clients. And that doesn't always work, because once you start cheap, you end up staying cheap. If you go for quality, there are a lot of quality-minded dentists out there, and there are a lot of dentists that want a quality technician. Dentists prefer being able to talk to the same technician, to always know the same technician is working on their cases. Not to say anything bad about the big labs out there. And there are many of them, and they do some fine quality work. However, with the big labs, you don't necessarily always know if it's going to be the same person working on your cases or not. Your dentists, your clinicians like to be able to pick up the phone, and they like to be able to reach you. When they've got Mrs. So-and-so sitting in the chair, and Mrs. So-and-so has a question or an issue or something with a partial or a denture, they want to be able to pick the phone up, and they want to say, hey, what do you think? What do you think the best way about dealing with this is? So for me, it's communications, always being open, always being available, always being, never being too busy to take the time for a phone call, being available for my local dentists, being able to go in there and being able to see them, being able to see the patient, being able to work chairside. And there's a lot of times, for example, we had one just the other week, a Valplast partial that was made. The patient was having a lot of issues with it. It was a free-end saddle, lower free-end saddle, and the doctor could not get the patient out of pain. And I went in there. I said, well, let's have a look at the bite. Let's check the bite. And the bite was a little heavy. And unfortunately, where the fact that the Valplast was going right up the back of the retromolar pad, it's just like, you know what? Let's just trim it off. The patient doesn't necessarily need the second molar on there on this partial. We went ahead, we trimmed the valplast down, we cut it down, we reshaped it, we polished it, and all of a sudden the patient's happy, no more pain. And it's just little things like that, little tips, little techniques, little things that you learn that you've picked up over the years that you can communicate to new clients that will make their lives easier. And it's just things like that. And exactly. I charge more for my dentures, but my dentures come with me. In other words, I'm there to back up what I sell. I service what I sell. If there's a problem, I will come in and I will help you deal with it. And I can tell you from experience from both my father and myself, when we would go in, he would go in and work chairside with some of his doctors. They would just do the dentures, step 1, 2, 3, boom, delivery. And, he would often call up 2 weeks later saying, oh, how did the dentures go for Mr. So-and-so? I don't know. They've never come back for a sore spot or adjustment. So we've obviously done something right. And it's little things like that that provide value to your clinicians. So if you can become a master of your trade and you can also master some of the other techniques that are out there, all I can tell my fellow lab technicians is learn, keep learning, soak it up like a sponge, spend time with your clinicians, spend time with your doctors, attend study clubs, read, learn, educate, and inwardly digest.
That's powerful. That is powerful. And if you had to, or if someone were to ask you, Gary, what resources would you recommend? What would your answer be?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? It's I'm having a little bit of I've broke up a bit. Can you say that again?
Okay, sure. If a dental technician were to ask you, what resources would you recommend? What would your answer be?
Resources in
yes,
as far as
for education, for continuing to grow, things that have possibly helped you, and you've been able to take a lot from these things, whether it's a trade show, a book.
A lot of online. There's a lot of information out there online now. We are in a digital age. You can go onto YouTube, you can go onto all of these places, and you can research just about everything. If there's something you don't know, an attachment or a fitting or some type of abutment, you can find out. Technicians are your friends. You should always make friends with a group of technicians. Don't be afraid to share knowledge with other technicians. Many of us, the time I've come into talking to technicians or speaking to them, and it's like everything is a closely guarded secret. Nobody ever wants to share knowledge or information with anybody else. And the sad part about it is we're all in the same union. We're all in the same boat. Some of us have got skills that others don't have. Some of us have got talents that others don't have. But you know what? We can share that knowledge and we can share that skill to turn around and tell a technician, hey, let me help you with something. Let me show you a technique. Let me give you an idea. If they can be of help. This is how we learn. This is how we grow. And the other resource I would say are study clubs. Speak to your doctors, speak to your clients, find out if they're in a study club. If they are in a study club and they're interested in doing something on removables, attend the study club, talk to them. One of the best ways to pick up clients is for recommendations from other clients. And believe me, I've done many of the year that we used to, go through the phone book and call up and cold call and send out flyers and send out mailers. And you know what? That stuff ends up in the dustbin. Walking into offices, dropping off flyers and cards. The stuff never gets to the doctor. If you want to get more doctors, have your doctors tell their friends, their associates, and their compatriots about you. If they're happy, they'll share your knowledge. And that's how we have built our business. We have always been very, very lucky that now my doctors, before my father's doctors, they would tell other doctors. They would tell doctors that they work for. They would invite us to study clubs. They would invite us to come and talk at study clubs. They would invite us to come and, show techniques at study clubs. And that's basically how we taking on any more new clients, because I do have, I'm pretty well full at the moment. And I do get phone calls occasionally asking, can I do, and obviously depending on how busy we are, but at this point I can't take on any more new, I can't even take on any more new work. It's just that busy right now.
Well, that's definitely exciting and a good problem to have, I guess. And really, it's been amazing hearing you and the knowledge and the experience and the advice that you have shared. Definitely an honor having you on. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time, coming on and sharing the experience, the information, your advice, your counsel. It's definitely very, very needed. As you mentioned, other technicians need to hear from those that have been there, done that, so that they won't go down the route that will not lead them to success. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I know that you're supposed to be catching a flight soon to Atlanta, and that was a whole ordeal. But I really appreciate you taking the time again, Gary. It's been a pleasure. I know you will not be in Chicago, and we will miss you. We will miss you, but I hope we can definitely see you soon.
Absolutely, and like I said, keep follow us on Instagram. Keep sending in the questions. Keep liking. Keep asking. Keep learning. And be well, everyone. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye for now.
Gary, thank you. Thank you for coming out. Ladies and gentlemen, till next time.
Bye for now.